This is our second public hearing on the FY 27 budget, so we're going to ask Melissa to come up and talk to us a few minutes about the budget.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. And welcome to the second public hearing of our FY 27 proposed budget. So I will go back through the presentation. Again, this is our second public hearing. I'll highlight any main points of the proposed budget and any changes for you. Highlighting the mission statement of Oconee County, providing quality services in a fiscally responsible manner. We strive to do that each budget year, so this is repetitive, but we keep it in mind each year. So as we go through the presentation, we will also try to illustrate the strategic goals that we're meeting in the FY 27 budget. Okay, the proposed budget for general fund, which is the operating fund of the county, is at $49,004,700. This is a balanced budget with revenues and expenditures being equal, and an increase of just over 3.3 million or 7% over prior year's original adopted budget. So again, it's balanced. You'll see the same increases in revenues and expenses. Property tax making up the largest portion of the general fund budget at just over 41%, budgeted at 20.1 million. And a slight increase over prior year, and that increase is related to the ad valorem tax. Local option sales tax at 25%, and the increase related there is just the increases that we continue to see in our local option sales tax collections month over month. Charges for services contains the key increase for FY 27. We have our ambulance services budgeted in our EMS department now, and the charges for services represent 1.5 million in collections back on fees for ambulance services use. Charges for services also does include our school resource officer reimbursements for the Board of Education at 90%, as well as other items countywide. Other taxes at 4.9 million. The largest component of that line item is our insurance premium tax, which is budgeted at 3.6 million. Grants at 1.8 million is an increase over prior year. So annually, we plan for our LMIG funding from Georgia Department of Transportation. And last few years, we've also received an additional amount from the state, and that's our LRA funding. So we've included that in the FY 27 proposed budget as well. Investment income at 1.2 represents a decrease just based on the current interest rate environment, and we do believe that that is still a conservative revenue budget line item as well. And for the remaining items, you'll see that there is not much of a change represented in the comparative chart on the right-hand side. And looking at how we intend to spend those revenues, the largest portion being that of the law enforcement, jail, and E911 category at almost 31% of general fund expenditures at 15.1 million. Followed by administration and operations. There's a decrease on that line item. We have removed the $500,000 that was originally planned in FY 26 as a transfer over to our capital projects fund. In removing that line item, you'll kind of see across the board, we've removed some costs in order to supplement the new EMS funded ambulance services, which are represented on the public safety line item. So in addition to removing that, we've also gone through several line items across all departments and made sure that our budgets were comparative to actuals, line items such as professional services, general supplies, and fuel line items. As well as unfunded some vacant positions only for the fiscal year 27 and then for further review afterwards. Okay. And looking at the same expense items, but instead of by department, looking at them by classification. We have the chart here that illustrates personnel and employee benefits at 28.1 million. Making up 57% of the proposed general fund spending. Operations and maintenance comes in at 26.8%, and that is an increase over prior year, largely related to EMS operations. The increase in paving, so we've budgeted additional revenue for paving, so you'll see that increase on the expenditure side as well as the comp plan. For FY 27, we have included $150,000 for the comp plan within the planning department. One note of a change here, the presentation has not been changed, but there is an account reclassification of funding, if you will. We would like to move funds from personnel into operations and maintenance. And that amount is approximately $130,000. So that's just a line item change and won't change the total proposed budget or budget by department on reports that you have already reviewed. We'll take a closer look at capital in a moment. Allocations to other agencies include contributions to services such as the county extension program, the library. Debt services budgeted at 2.1 from the general fund include our Costco and Caterpillar bond payments, and then support to other funds, our funds within Oconee County at $3.5 million. And specific capital items that have been planned for are our IT network equipment replacements at $80,000. Equipped vehicles for law enforcement from the general fund for school resource officers at $280,000, 90% of that which is reimbursed back to us. Fleet maintenance vehicle replacements at $260,000 includes 6 vehicles countywide, in addition to the sheriff's office vehicles. A cable barrier at Herman C. Michael Park at $80,000, and park facilities equipment allocation of $50,000. Of course, the general fund is only one component, so the total proposed budget in FY 27 is $85,493,242, which consists not only of the general fund, but also SPLOST, T-SPLOST, capital project funds, special revenue, and our 3 enterprise funds. And this is an increase of just over 1.7 million, or 2% over prior year. You see the same revenue format here, so I will point out the items that we haven't already discussed for general fund, which is our water and sewer enterprise fund at just 16.3 million, making up 19.4% of our total budget proposed revenues. T-SPLOST, and that's at 10.9 million. That's 12.9% of the total proposed budget. And SPLOST, special local purpose taxes at 5.1 million. And we do anticipate collections over that amount. However, to balance the budget, we're anticipating the same 5.1 in spending. So that's the revenue budget line item as well. And E911 revenues are included at 960,000. You'll notice the total revenue budget is 84.4 million, and I did just tell you that the total budget was 85.4. So we do have expenses that exceed revenues, just meaning that we're balancing the budget using fund balance or some of the prior year funds. And this relates to special revenue and our enterprise funds, meaning that they've collected revenues in previous years that we're planning to use in FY 27. And the expenses related to these revenues, in addition to the general fund, in law enforcement, jail, and E911, now includes SPLOST vehicles, and this is equipped vehicles for the sheriff's department at 530,000, and E911 operations at 2.4 million. You can see the water resources expense budget representing 19.8% of the total recommended budget, and that's at 16.9 million. Public Works on this chart does include our T-SPLOST expenditures at 10.9 million. Administration and Operations does include our SPLOST and T-SPLOST intergovernmental payments, which are the payments to the municipalities per our intergovernmental agreement. And that's 3.8 million, as well as our administrative building debt service funded from SPLOST at 1,079,000. Here, public safety also includes SPLOST-funded fire vehicles. That's 3 tanker trucks at $720,000. Parks and Recreation includes SPLOST-funded Veterans Park Debt Service at $744,000. Economic Development, Civic Center and Tourism line item, in addition to the general fund, includes operations for hotel sales taxes and civic center funds. And our sanitation sites included at $1.1 million. So capital-specific funded items outside of the general fund do include reserves, if you will, or life cycle management funding for county facilities, jail equipment, and public safety equipment. These funds aren't necessarily intended to be spent in FY27, but we do want to reserve them for upcoming emergency use or towards future larger purchases. SPLOST budget includes some items we've already discussed: the debt service, law enforcement vehicles, the 3 tanker trucks for fire rescue. The operations line item for $65,000 includes parking lot paving. And in T-SPLOST, we have paving of $6 million, transportation-related services of just over $3 million, an infrastructure placeholder of $100,000. That is for design services to kick off any projects so that we can get more accurate cost proposals to then present to you for approval, and distributions to municipalities. And then our Water Resources Fund, we have more details as it's a large percentage of our total budget and the largest enterprise fund, proposed at $16.9 million, which is an increase of just over 2.5%. So here we have the revenues on the left-hand side and expenses on the right-hand side. Of note in the revenues, here it's a little difficult to see. We're comparing the FY26 amended budget, which contains some one-time revenue sources, but we are indicating that our capacity fees and our availability fee revenues will increase. That's an increase of $300,000 total. And we are decreasing our interest revenue budget down $100,000 to $350,000 for the same reason that we saw decreases in the general fund. And on the expenses, we have personnel at $2.5 million. Operations and maintenance at $5.2 million, specifically includes plans for pump station and well repairs. Capital outlays include 2 replacement vehicles, a locating device, and right-of-way and easement funding. Depreciation increasing to $3.7 million. Debt service at $4.9 million, and payments to other agencies. Again, here you'll see that the total proposed revenues and total proposed expenses are slightly different. This is one of the funds that we are balancing with fund balance usage from a prior period. As we've talked about the strategic goals, which were smart government, growth and infrastructure, and quality of life. So the next following slides will show you our commitment to public safety, transportation, infrastructure, and phase replacement programs in support of these goals. When all the categories on the right-hand side, law enforcement, jail, courts, EMS is the new department, E911, fire, medical rescue, EMA, and animal services make up 49% of general fund budget spending. The chart on the right does show you the total budget spending, and that represents a $27 million of funding spent on public safety. The lighter shades of blue on the chart illustrate the capital purchases. So for law enforcement, that does include the school resource officer and SPLOST funded vehicles. And in fire, that includes 3 tanker trucks funded by SPLOST. And specifically EMS, we've discussed this. This just shows revenues offsetting the expenses for a net cost of the program of $1.6 million to the county, representing 6% of the general fund budget. Paving is represented at $7.8 million in our FY27 proposed budget. 1.8 of that is coming from grant funds through the general fund, and $6 million coming from T-SPLOST. And the other component of operations gives us a total transportation improvement and maintenance budget of $13.7 million in FY27. Water and sewer, largely represented by operations in the chart here, which differs from prior years. We generally have some infrastructure items to show you here. The reason why you don't see those is because a lot of that is already in process and approved in current year. And when those items were approved, they were approved for with budgets for the life of the project up to the contract amount. So those remaining balances after FY 26 ends will roll forward in the form of an amendment into FY 27. Those projects do include the Daniels Bridge Lift Station expansion, Rocky Branch Force Main and Lift Station, the Calls Creek Transmission Line, Epps Bridge Lift Station expansion, Veterans Park Lift Station upgrades, Epps Bridge Collection Line and the 441 Collector Line, as well as Oconee County's participation in the Bear Creek Plant and Hard Labor Creek Plant expansion projects. And we do have multiple phase replacement programs that have initiated throughout the county. The fleet is the one that I generally present to you. So you can see the law enforcement fleet purchases funded through general fund and SPOSS at $810,000. Fire funded through SPOSS at $720,000. Fleet replacements through the general fund, and those are just general use county vehicles. And then the Water Resources Enterprise Fund does fund their own vehicle replacements. So the next step in the budget process is the budget adoption, which I understand will take place at the June 2nd regularly scheduled meeting. All the information in the presentation, a one-page budget summary, and the fee schedule is posted on the website. And the one-page budget summary is posted next to the front doors in the administrative building and our Watkinsville and Bogart libraries. So I would encourage everyone to review that information. I'm always happy to answer any questions about anything that's seen on the website or published. And of course, this evening, if you have any, and I thank you all for your time.
Any questions for Melissa from commissioners? All right. Do we have any public comment? Thank you. Well, thank everybody who put a time and effort into this budget. Would recommend its approval on June the 2nd at our next meeting. With that, we'll close our public hearing and move into our regular board commissioners meeting for Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. After a moment of silence, we're going to ask Commissioner Harden if he would lead us in the pledge. Please stand. Thank you.
To the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item of business is to approve the agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second. Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any statements, remarks from citizens? Any statements, remarks from commissioners? Very good. We'll move on to our first item, which is a discussion of the purchase of the 2,000-gallon tanker truck. Melissa?
Thank you. The request this evening before you is related to an approval of a purchase that exceeds $100,000. The fire chief would like to replace a 1995 tanker truck that's currently at fire station number 2 with a new tanker truck. Funds are available in our SPLOST budget in FY 26. And anticipating that the cost won't exceed $240,000. It does consist of several components. It's purchasing the chassis, the tank body, and the pump separately, and then bringing all those components together. And the build is completed for us with the Georgia Forestry Commission. So the request this evening is for the purchase of the tanker truck at a total of $240,000. Also requesting budget amendments for the life of the project, not to exceed that contract amount, because we don't believe that the vehicle will be complete and in our hands before the end of the fiscal year. So we'd like to continue the funding into next year until the vehicle is received. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on this item? You're all right for consent? Any public comment? The next item is update on the purchase of Station 8 fire engine. So that's in the finalizing the specs on that. So that'll show up on our agenda next week with the dollar amount and awarding that contract to move forward at that time. kind of an update that we're not quite ready to present tonight, so we'll bring it up on June the 2nd. Next item is to discuss and consider an animal services fencing grant project acceptance.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Crystal Briscoe, Manager with Oconee County Animal Services. Tonight, I'd briefly like to go over a proposed grant-funded fencing project for the shelter, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. The following project is being presented for discussion and consideration due to the deadline. We are to receive grant funding in the amount of $15,000 for several projects that would include two 20 by 40 dog turnout kennels that will be 6 foot high chain link fencing. And that will be in the back right-hand corner of the shelter where the old porta-cachet shed is. They will also utilize that shed as shelter for the animals. They're going to modify that to the needs to provide shelter in that area. And the second project would be approximately 210 feet of fencing, farm-style fencing with a top board, so it'll look very nice. And that will be on the top of the hill where the small little ag center is, just outside the fencing on the right-hand side of the shelter by the wood line. This area will provide enrichment space, and additional space for exercise, decompression, and behavioral enrichment activities. The grant award again is in the amount of $15,000, and the grant funds will be paid directly to the contractors performing the work. The project completion deadline date is September 1st, 2026. I have attached the scope of work and the MOU in your packet that you have received, and a couple of photos that depict the idea that we're presenting to the contractors to give us estimates on. The deadline to execute this MOU is May 22nd. And again, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And just thank you for your support and consideration.
Any questions for Crystal?
I have one. Who selects the contractor?
So they will have a project contracting company. Albion is their contractor. So it will be between Atlanta Humane, their contractor, and us. So we do have a say. So they just have to be qualified, you know, with the appropriate liability insurance, W-9, all of that stuff. So we will get together and get the estimates and then make the decision from there.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Do you have any public comment on this item? Based on our schedule, this needs to be approved tonight in order to be eligible for this to continue. So I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the animal services fencing project grant acceptance as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is discuss the LAS decommissioning task order. Adam?
Good evening, Commissioners. Po Boys Plumbing Incorporated has submitted task order number 2026-009 for the demolition of the Rocky Branch LAS. The work will be completed under the annual on-call contract and is intended to decommission and demolish the facility as needed for the planned Dawson Park project. The scope includes demolition of existing headworks, facility buildings, above-ground structures, fencing, gates, and related site features, demolition of 4 storage/treatment ponds, including aerators, liners, connecting piping, concrete flumes, and required grading for the pond berm breaching, demolition of the spray field pump station, valves, distribution lines, along with spray heads and stand pipes getting cut to the existing grade, dewatering, handling, testing, hauling, and proper disposal of sludge and wastewater solids, removal of on-site piping 6 inches in diameter and greater, and cut, plug, and abandon of piping less than 6 inches in diameter, including existing water, sewer force main, reuse water, spray field, and other on-site piping as specified. It also includes abandonment of on-site groundwater monitoring wells and completion of required erosion control stabilization, grassing, and gravel repair work. Recommendation is discuss approval of task order number 2026-09 with Po Boys Plumbing Incorporated for the Rocky Branch Land Application System Decommissioning Project. The financial impact is a total not to exceed amount of $1,436,800. This request includes all necessary budget amendments up to the contract amount for the life of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Adam on this side? You're all right for consent?
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment? With that, we'll move on to discussion of the FY 27 ACCG Irma Property and Liability Insurance Renewal. Molly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Yes, last week we received our insurance renewal packet from ACCG for FY 27. The coverages will remain the same with our $10,000 deductible. The premium will be $442,606, and that's after a $23,295 safety credit that we earned. The recommendation is for approval, and the funds are accommodated in the proposed FY 27 budget.
Any questions for Holly on this one? None? All right, be all right for consent. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Next item is discuss a donation to Toombs County. CJ?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners. We have an opportunity to donate a surplus fire engine 1993 International to Toombs County. While it no longer suits the needs of Oconee County, we do have the opportunity for them to put it to use to protect their citizens. So we'd like to donate it to them. I'd like to ask you to authorize the chairman to execute any documents needed to execute that transfer.
Any questions on that one? We are for consent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment? With that, we'll move on to discuss an agreement with the Georgia Transmission Corporation for a pole replacement. This is related to our 441 sewer collection system upgrade. As you remember, we're reaching our maximum capacity along that corridor, so we're having to put a 12-inch line along the backside of those properties, right across 441 from us. There's a easement for a guy wire for one of the poles. We attempted to try to bore under it. Georgia Transmissions did not feel comfortable with that. And so the only option available is to replace it with a pole that does not require the guy wire. That'll be $60,000 to do that. If we don't do that, we'll have to redesign the line to go around that pole somehow, and we'll have to start renegotiating right away with other people. So we prefer not to do that. So the request tonight is to authorize us to execute this agreement with Georgia Transmission Line so they can have it completed by October 1st of this year. I'll be happy to answer any questions on this. Consent agenda. Do we have any public comment? With that, we do need an executive session to discuss land acquisition, personnel, and litigation.
Make a motion, we go into executive session, discuss land acquisition, personnel, and litigation.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion carries. We need a motion to go back in regular session.
So move.
Second.
Aye.
Yes,
Motion adjourned.
we gotta say all in favor.
Oh, aye.
Okay, motion carries. Commissioner Sacks,
Motion adjourned.
wait a second.
Second.
We're adjourned.